It was a Friday evening. The house was quiet. My daughter Jenny was studying late at the campus library, and my son Mike had soccer practice. I was in the kitchen finishing up the dishes, thinking about what we might do as a family over the weekend. Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from Laura, my wife. She said she needed to talk to me about something important. At first, I thought it might be about a promotion she'd mentioned a few weeks earlier, or maybe she wanted to plan our summer vacation. Little to know that message was the prelude to the end of the life I thought I knew. Laura walked through the door about an hour later, but she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a man, tall, muscular, probably in his 30s. He looked completely out of place in my home. My heart sank immediately, but I didn't let it show. I wiped my hands on a towel, walked into the living room, and waited for an explanation. "This is Derek," Laura said as they both sat down on the couch. She didn't waste time with small talk. She got straight to the point. "I'm 3 months pregnant," she said, avoiding eye contact, "and Derek is the father." For a moment, I couldn't process what I was hearing. Pregnant? Derek? It was as if the room had started spinning. She went on explaining how they'd met at the gym 8 months ago, how they developed a deep connection, and how she hadn't been happy in our marriage for years. Years. This was news to me. I'd never seen her as anything but content. At least that's what she led me to believe. Derek sat there, smug, with his arm draped over her shoulder like he was some kind of hero. He didn't say much at first, just smiled arrogantly, like he had won a prize. Laura kept talking, something about needing to start a new life, and how she hoped I'd understand. The audacity of it all was unbelievable. This was the woman I had built my life with, the mother of my children, sitting in our living room with her lover, casually ripping apart everything we built together. I stood there, gripping the back of a chair, trying to keep my composure. When she finished her little speech, I told them both to leave. That's when Derek decided to show his true colors. He stood up, chest puffed out, and said, "You can't kick her out. This is her house too. Man up and accept that she's found someone better." I wanted to explode, but I knew I couldn't afford to lose control. Instead, I calmly told them I would be filing for divorce first thing Monday morning and that they needed to leave immediately. That's when things escalated. Derek took a step closer, towering over me, and said, "You better be careful. I'm not going to let you ruin her life or our baby's life. I know where you work. I know where your kids go to school. Accidents happen all the time." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It wasn't just the words. It was the way he said them, like he had rehearsed it. That's when I realized this wasn't just a casual affair. This was something darker, more calculated. Luckily, I had started recording the moment things felt off. My phone was tucked into the couch cushions, capturing every word. Laura stood there silently, not even flinching, when Derek pulled a gun out of his waistband and pointed it directly at my chest. My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady. I repeated, "You need to leave now." Derek smirked, waving the gun slightly for emphasis. "If you make this difficult, you'll regret it," he said. "Think about your kids. Dak, think about your job. Don't push me." Laura didn't say a word. She didn't try to stop him. She didn't even look shocked. She just stood there staring at the floor. That, more than anything, broke something in me. After what felt like an eternity, they finally left. I didn't waste a second. I locked the door, grabbed my phone, and called the police. That was the moment I knew my life had changed forever. What I didn't realize then was that this was only the beginning. Looking back, I realized the signs were there all along, but I just didn't want to see them. It started about 4 months ago when Laura announced she was joining a new gym. She said she wanted to get in shape before turning 46. I thought it was a great idea. I even offered to go with her, but she brushed me off. She told me she wanted this time to focus on herself, so I respected that. I trusted her completely, and in hindsight, maybe that was my biggest mistake. At first, everything seemed normal. She came home energized, talking about her workouts and how much she liked the instructors. But soon, little things started to change. She bought a whole new wardrobe of gym clothes. Expensive ones, far fancier than what she used to wear. She dyed her hair a lighter shade, started wearing makeup to the gym, and even changed her perfume. I thought she was just enjoying her new routine. I didn't question any of it. Then came the phone habits. She was always on her phone, constantly checking messages or switching screens the moment I walked into the room. If I asked who she was texting, she'd shrug it off, saying it was a friend or someone from work. One night, I caught her smiling at her phone, and when I asked what was so funny, she got defensive. She said I was being paranoid, so I dropped it. She also started working late, at least that's what she told me. There were nights when she wouldn't come home until 9 or 10 p.m., claiming her team was swamped with a big client project. I believed her because she had always been dedicated to her job. I made sure dinner was ready when she got home and handled everything with the kids so she could focus on work. But now I know that a lot of those late nights were spent with Derek. The biggest change, though, was in our intimacy, or lack thereof. Our physical relationship disappeared almost overnight. I tried to be understanding. She'd say she was tired or had a headache or needed to wake up early for work. I didn't want to push her, so I convinced myself it was just a phase. For 3 months, there was nothing. No affection, no connection. And every time I brought it up, she had another excuse. I remember one day vividly. It was a Saturday, and I suggested we spend the day together, just the two of us. She hesitated, then said she already had plans to go to the gym. I offered to join her, and she looked almost panicked, saying she needed to focus and didn't want distractions. I let it go, but something about the way she avoided eye contact stuck with me. The lies didn't stop there. She started dressing differently. Not just for the gym, but all the time. She became more conscious of her appearance, even when she was just running errands. She'd leave the house in heels and a tight dress to pick up groceries, which didn't make sense, but I never said anything. Part of me didn't want to seem insecure or controlling. Another part of me didn't want to believe there was a reason to be suspicious. I can't tell you how many nights I sat in our living room, staring at the clock, wondering why she wasn't home yet. I wanted to ask her outright if something was going on, but I was scared of what she might say. Instead, I buried myself in work and focused on the kids. I convinced myself that we were just going through a rough patch and that things would eventually go back to normal. I hate how naive I was. All the signs were there: her constant phone use, the late nights, the sudden interest in her appearance, and the way she pulled away from me emotionally and physically. But I trusted her. I trusted her so much that I ignored my gut telling me something was wrong. Those months of lies, those subtle betrayals, they were the foundation for the nightmare that followed. At the time, I thought I was doing the right thing by giving her space and not prying into her personal life. But now I realize that trust without communication is just blind faith. And in my case, it was the rope she used to tie me to a chair while she burned our entire life down. That night, after Derek and Laura left, I sat on the couch for what felt like hours, staring at the spot where Derek had stood, gun in hand, threatening my life. I couldn't shake the image. The cold, calculated way he pointed it at me, and the way Laura just stood there silently, not once stepping in or even looking surprised. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It felt like I had been pulled into some kind of twisted crime drama. I played back the recording on my phone, listening to every word they said, every threat Derek made. It was chilling. The way he talked about knowing where my kids went to school, how accidents happen all the time. It was all so casual to him, as if he'd done this before. And Laura, she just stood there. She didn't plead with him to stop, didn't try to diffuse the situation. Her silence felt like another knife in my back. When the recording ended, I didn't hesitate. I called the police immediately. The dispatcher kept asking me to stay calm, but honestly, I felt oddly calm in that moment. Maybe it was the adrenaline wearing off, or maybe it was the realization that I couldn't afford to break down. Not yet. I explained everything to the officer who arrived, showed him the recording, and watched as he nodded grimly. They took my statement, and before the night was over, Derek was arrested for making criminal threats. Laura was taken into custody too, as an accessory. I thought seeing the police car lights outside my house would bring some kind of relief, but it didn't. The damage was already done. The next morning, I sat the kids down to tell them what had happened. Jenny broke down immediately. She cried so hard that I thought she might pass out. Mike didn't cry. He didn't even say anything. He just got up, walked into his room, and slammed the door. About an hour later, I heard a loud crash. When I went to check, I found a hole in the wall. He had punched it. I didn't yell at him or lecture him. I just stood there, unsure of what to say. He looked at me with a mixture of anger and heartbreak, then locked himself in his room for 2 days. He only came out when I promised him that we would get through this together. My phone didn't stop ringing that day. Laura's parents called me, begging me to drop the charges. Her mother said she was under so much stress because of the pregnancy and that I should be more understanding. I couldn't believe it. Stress doesn't make someone stand by while their lover threatens their husband's life. Stress doesn't make someone lie and cheat for months. I hung up on them. On the other hand, my parents were furious. They wanted me to press every possible charge and take everything from Laura in the divorce. I didn't argue with them, but I couldn't focus on revenge. My priority was protecting my kids and figuring out how to pick up the pieces of our lives. That night after the kids went to bed, I sat in the living room surrounded by pictures of our family vacations, birthdays, and holidays. There was one from our 20th wedding anniversary, the four of us smiling like everything was perfect. I wanted to rip it off the wall, but I couldn't. Instead, I just stared at it, trying to figure out how we'd gone from that moment to this. The worst part was the silence. The house felt empty, even with the kids there. I kept replaying the confrontation in my head, wondering what I could have done differently. But no matter how much I thought about it, the truth didn't change. Laura had made her choices, Derek had made his threats, and now it was up to me to figure out how to protect my family from the fallout. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Derek's smug face, his hand on the gun, and Laura standing there like a stranger. My marriage, my family, my sense of safety, it was all gone in an instant. But I told myself one thing as I sat there in the dark. No one was ever going to threaten me or my kids again. The days after the confrontation were a blur of phone calls, legal meetings, and police updates. I thought the worst was over after Derek and Laura were arrested, but I was wrong. What came next wasn't just shocking, it was unbelievable. It started with a knock on my door one morning. I opened it to find a woman in her early 30s standing there with a thick folder in her hands. She introduced herself as Amy, Derek's wife. I was stunned. Until that moment, I didn't even know Derek was married. Amy wasted no time explaining why she was there. She had found out about Derek's arrest through a local news report and had started digging into his life. What she uncovered made my nightmare look almost tame by comparison. Amy handed me the folder and told me it contained evidence that Derek had done this before. 2 years ago, he had an affair with a woman at his workplace got her pregnant and disappeared when she was 6 months along. The woman ended up moving back in with her parents to raise the baby alone. Amy had tracked her down and included her testimony in the folder. It painted a picture of Derek as a serial manipulator, a man who moved from one woman to the next, leaving chaos in his wake. But that wasn't all. Amy had also uncovered text messages between Derek and Laura that dated back months. As I read through them, my stomach turned. They weren't just having an affair, they were conspiring against me. In one message, Derek told Laura, "When we tell him about us, I'll bring my gun. If he gets aggressive, I'll scare him a little so he knows not to fight the divorce. You'll keep everything." Laura's response was even worse. "Perfect plan, love. He's such a coward, he'll probably cry." I couldn't believe what I was reading. The gun threat hadn't been an impulsive act of bravado, it was premeditated. They had planned to use fear to manipulate me into giving up my assets in the divorce. Every word felt like a punch to the gut. The woman I had loved, the mother of my children, had been plotting with her lover to destroy me. I gave the folder to my lawyer and the police. They were as horrified as I was. The prosecutor added conspiracy charges to Derek's case, and Laura was now facing even more legal trouble. But the revelations didn't stop there. A week later, my daughter Jenny was looking through Laura's things, hoping to find family photos, when she stumbled upon a second cell phone that I had no idea existed. The messages on that phone went back almost a year. It turned out Laura and Derek had been planning this for far longer than I thought. They had even timed the pregnancy announcement to coincide with when she started showing, believing I would be less likely to fight back if a baby was involved. But the cruelest twist came during the investigation. A paternity test revealed that Derek wasn't the father of Laura's baby. It was someone else entirely, her personal trainer, a younger man named Chad. Apparently, Laura had been juggling multiple affairs, and Derek wasn't aware of this one. When he found out, he lost it. At the next court hearing, Derek exposed everything in a bid to save himself. He testified that the entire plan was Laura's idea. She had approached him at the gym, seduced him, and convinced him to be part of her scheme. According to Derek, she specifically targeted him because he had an intimidating presence and a legal firearm. I didn't think it was possible to feel any more betrayed, but hearing those details in court was like living the nightmare all over again. Laura's lies, her manipulation, it was all so calculated, so heartless. And to top it off, she had lied to Derek as well, letting him believe he was the father of her child when she had been sleeping with someone else all along. When Chad was subpoenaed to testify, he looked as blindsided as I felt. He had no idea Laura was married. She had told him she was divorced and that her ex-husband was abusive. She even introduced Jenny and Mike to him once, claiming they were her nephews. Chad came forward with his own set of messages, which only added to the pile of evidence against Laura. By the time the court proceedings wrapped up that day, Laura's lawyer looked ready to quit. Her credibility was in shambles, and her life, the one she had tried so hard to orchestrate, was unraveling faster than she could keep up with. Watching it all unfold was surreal. I had thought I knew her, but the woman sitting in that courtroom was a stranger, someone capable of cruelty and deceit I couldn't have imagined. As I left the courthouse that day, a strange sense of clarity washed over me. This wasn't about love or betrayal anymore. It was about survival. Laura had made her choices, and now the truth was dragging her down like an anchor. And for the first time in months, I felt like I was finally breaking free. Watching Laura's life unravel was both surreal and deeply unsettling. For years, she had been my partner, my confidant, the mother of my children. Now, I barely recognized her. Each new day brought fresh fallout from her decisions, and it seemed like every aspect of her life was crumbling under the weight of her lies. After the court revelations, Laura's professional life took a nosedive. Her company discovered the criminal charges and the details of her involvement in the conspiracy during a background check for a promotion she had applied for. They acted quickly, citing their zero-tolerance policy for criminal behavior. She was fired on the spot. Without her job, she couldn't afford to keep her apartment. She moved in with her sister, who, from what I've heard, wasn't thrilled about the arrangement. Even her family had started to distance themselves after seeing the text messages and hearing Derek's testimony. The kids especially wanted nothing to do with her. Jenny, who used to idolize her mother, sent a single text that said everything. "You're dead to me." Laura tried to respond with a long email about how she was just trying to find happiness and how Jenny would understand one day when she was older. But Jenny wasn't having it. She didn't even read past the first sentence before deleting it. Mike, on the other hand, didn't even bother acknowledging her. He was so deeply hurt that he acted like she didn't exist. I think that might have been the hardest part for Laura, knowing that the kids she claimed to love so much had turned their backs on her. Her downward spiral didn't stop there. A few months into the mess, I heard through her sister that Laura was struggling with alcoholism. Apparently, she had started drinking heavily after losing her job, despite being pregnant. I didn't want to believe it, but it wasn't long before the rumors were confirmed. She lost the baby at 5 months due to complications, and her sister admitted that the drinking likely played a part. I should have felt something, pity maybe, or sadness, but I couldn't. She had brought this on herself, and all I could focus on was making sure my kids were okay. Meanwhile, Derek's life was no better. His wife, Amy, wasted no time divorcing him and moving to another state with their kids. He lost his real estate license because of the scandal and ended up working as a waiter in some small-town diner. From what I've heard, he spends most of his time complaining about how Laura ruined his life. The irony is almost laughable. He thought he could manipulate me, take everything I had, and walk away unscathed. Now he's stuck cleaning tables, living in the wreckage of his own bad decisions. Even Chad, the baby's real father, wanted nothing to do with Laura after learning the full story. He left town, quitting his job at the gym, and hasn't been heard from since. It's almost poetic. Everyone Laura had dragged into her web of lies ended up abandoning her. She was left with nothing but the mess she created. Despite all this, Laura kept trying to reach out to me. She'd send emails, leave voicemails, and even showed up at the house once, drunk and screaming in the driveway. It was 2 a.m, and the neighbors called the police before I even had a chance to. She spent 2 nights in jail for violating the restraining order. Her sister refused to bail her out, saying Laura needed to face the consequences of her actions. I didn't argue. At that point, I was done trying to make sense of her choices. Through it all, my focus remained on Jenny and Mike. They were my priority, and watching them slowly start to heal gave me hope. Jenny went back to university and joined a support group for children of divorce. She even started seeing a counselor on campus, which seemed to help her process everything. Mike, on the other hand, took a little longer. His grades improved and he eventually returned to the soccer team, but he still had moments where his anger bubbled to the surface. Therapy helped, but it was clear that what Laura had done had left deep scars. As for me, I found myself reflecting on everything that had happened. Not just the betrayal, but the ripple effect it had on everyone involved. Laura's decisions had ruined her life, shattered Derek's, and left our family picking up the pieces. And yet I felt oddly at peace. Not because things were perfect, far from it, but because I knew I was doing everything I could to rebuild a stable, healthy life for my kids. Laura had made her choices, and now she was living with the consequences. I, on the other hand, was finally moving forward. 6 months ago, I couldn't imagine ever feeling normal again. My world had been torn apart in every way possible. But here I am now, sitting in the same living room where everything fell apart, feeling something I haven't felt in a long time. Hope. It hasn't been easy, but piece by piece, I've been putting my life back together. And for the first time in what feels like forever, I'm starting to see a future. The divorce was finalized last month. The judge awarded me the house and primary custody of Mike. Jenny, being an adult, wasn't part of the custody battle, but she made it clear she wanted nothing to do with Laura. Laura got almost nothing, just her personal belongings and her car. The judge didn't hold back, citing her conspiracy with Derek, her multiple affairs, and her overall betrayal as grounds for the unequal division of assets. I felt a strange sense of closure hearing that decision. It wasn't about revenge. It was about finally being free from the chaos she brought into our lives. Mike has been my biggest priority through all of this. He's come a long way since those first few days when he wouldn't leave his room. His grades are back up, and he's rejoined the soccer team. His therapist has been a godsend, helping him work through his anger and find healthier ways to express his feelings. The other day, he came to me with a grin on his face, holding up a report card with a B in math, a subject he's always struggled with. It might seem like a small victory, but to me, it was monumental. It showed me that we're moving forward. Jenny has also been finding her own way. She's back at university, throwing herself into her psychology studies. She joined a support group for children of divorce, and from what she's told me, it's helped her process a lot of the pain. Last week, she said something that stuck with me. She said, "Dad, I'm proud of you. You didn't let her break us." Hearing that from her meant more than she'll ever know. As for me, I've started dating again. It's something I never thought I'd do, but life has a way of surprising you. I met Lisa through a mutual friend. She's a high school teacher who went through her own divorce a few years ago. We've been taking things slow, there's no rush. She's met the kids and they seem to like her, especially Mike, who's been struggling with English there, and Lisa's been helping him improve his grades. It's not perfect, but it's a start. Laura hasn't stopped trying to worm her way back into our lives. She's sent long, rambling emails claiming she's changed and begging for a second chance. She even called me from a new number last week, saying she's been attending Alcoholics Anonymous meetings and is working on herself. I didn't let her finish. I hung up and blocked the number. There are some betrayals you just can't come back from, and this was one of them. She made her choices, and now she has to live with them. Despite everything, her parents have stayed in touch with me and the kids. They've cut Laura off completely after seeing the full extent of what she did. Her father even apologized to me, something I never expected. They've stepped up in ways I didn't think possible. Her mother comes over every Sunday to cook dinner, just like she used to when Laura and I were married. Her father took Mike fishing last weekend, something I never had time for when I was trying to hold our marriage together. It's bittersweet, but I'm grateful they've chosen to remain a part of our lives. Last week, Mike asked me if he could change his last name to mine when he turns 18. I didn't know what to say at first. I told him it was his decision and I'd support whatever he chose. It's moments like these that remind me how deep the wounds Laura left really are. But at the same time, it's a reminder of how far we've come. Life isn't perfect, and it probably never will be. There are still tough days, moments when the weight of everything hits me, and I wonder how we got here. But those moments are fewer and farther between now. We're building something new, a life that's ours, free from the lies and betrayals that once defined us. The other night, as I sat with Jenny and Mike watching a movie, I realized I wasn't thinking about the past. I wasn't dwelling on Laura or Derek or any of it. I was just there with my kids laughing at some ridiculous joke in the movie. And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly at peace. This is our life now, and I'm determined to make it the best one yet.